I want to say it's been around a year or two since I last bound my own sketchbook. It was my very first time doing it, so it was definitely a learning process, but it was a lot of fun, and I've been kind of itching to do that again, so it was very good timing when ARTEZA reached out to me and asked if we wanted to work together again, because I was able to get a very gorgeous selection of their watercolor papers, and that way I was able to put together 2 individual sketchbooks. ARTEZA has a handful of a bunch of different kinds of watercolor paper specifically on their website. I've tried their expert watercolor paper before and I absolutely loved it. It's 100% cotton watercolor paper, so it works so nicely. I really like working with it. So I chose to get a couple of different kinds from their expert line. I got a 7-inch round because I thought it would be really fun to try and put together a circle sketchbook. I figured it would kind of be a little strange, but I thought it would be very fun. And then I also got 2 separate pads, one being their cold press paper and one being their hot press paper. If you watch my videos a lot, you probably know I am a huge fan of cold press paper. I really like textured paper, but I've been kind of wanting to expand my horizons when it came to supplies and just trying different things. So I decided to pick up a pad of their hot press paper, and I was actually pretty surprised to see that the cold press paper was a lot more cool toned and very white, versus their hot press paper tends to lean a lot warmer and it is more of like an ivory color. I think it's a lot harder to tell when you're actually not looking at them side by side and they both independently look white, but their hot press expert paper is definitely a lot more warm. As for the actual putting together the sketchbooks part of things, this is definitely not a tutorial by any means. I really did not know what I was doing. I have bound one sketchbook in the past, and it was a completely different method, so I'll kind of walk you guys through it, but at the end of the day, this is more just watch me put this together, do not gain much knowledge on it, especially when it comes to the binding process, because I was just kind of learning as I was going. And of course, I'll leave a link in the description box below to the video that I was following while I was making this. The video I followed is by C Lemon, who I actually followed one of her videos previously when I bound my very first sketchbook. She does such a fantastic job teaching this, because I know binding your own sketchbook can seem pretty intimidating and like it's this very hard and difficult thing, but she is so good at teaching and making it a very simple process. And honestly, bookbinding is, I don't want to say it's easy, but like it's not hard at all. It's very time consuming, especially when you're using a lot of sheets, but it is not a difficult process at all. You just have to have a lot of patience and set aside time for it, because I want to say between these 2 sketchbooks I put together, it probably took me around 4 hours, and a lot of the time was spent because the way I'm doing these sketchbooks is there's single pages that I'm binding in versus you can do things called signatures, which are essentially multiple pages folded together, and then you like bind at the crease in the middle of those sheets. I couldn't do that with these because I wanted to use the full size of paper and I didn't want to fold it in half, so I had to individually sew on each page, which wasn't a huge deal at the end of things. It was just very time consuming, and I needed to have a needle for each hole, which was very cursed for me personally because of how I handled it, because I really didn't keep them like as separated as I could have. It was very messy and disorganized, but in the end it ended up working. I also spent a good chunk of time making sure that the covers were really pretty. It was just something that was really important to me, and I wanted the sketchbooks to look very cute and like personalized, but I didn't want to paint the covers, which now looking back on it would have been cool to paint the covers, but I'll do that next time, I guess, because I had a lot of fun binding these sketchbooks, and I'm sure it'll take me a good amount of time to fill them, but I think I would really like to do this again in the future, because this is a very fun craft. Like I said, it's super time consuming, but it's a lot of fun, and it's very satisfying at the end to have this full finished sketchbook. As far as actually putting together the covers goes, I used the cardboard that comes in the sketchbook pads, which is really nice because they're already the right size of the paper. You don't have to worry about really cutting anything out. And then I just decorated them with a couple different kinds of cardstock that I picked. I used double-sided tape to adhere pretty much everything together that I needed to adhere. I have this very strong double-sided tape, and it is so nice for anything paper craft related. Honestly, I've used it for like scrapbooking, paper crafting, and for all of the sketchbooks that I've put together, I've used it and it's held up amazingly well. It saves so much time and energy compared to using liquid glue, so highly recommend a very strong adhesive double-sided tape. It saves so much time and it's so convenient. I'm also super pumped to actually use this circle sketchbook. I've only worked on a couple different kinds of circle paper before. They've all been the Paul Rubens brand, and it has been really fun working with such a different, like, not normal size of paper and not normal shape of paper. So I'm really excited to actually use the circle sketchbook. I used to have this kind of, I wouldn't necessarily call it a rule, but definitely a mindset I had when it came to using sketchbooks. I always used to really try to only work out of one or maybe two sketchbooks at a time, like one main sketchbook, and if I wanted like some side sketchbook, that's fine. And recently I've just kind of gotten rid of that concept, which has been so nice because subconsciously the reason I was doing that is so I could A to B, finish one sketchbook at a time. That way I was finishing sketchbooks more often, so I can make more sketchbook tour videos for YouTube and just sharing them to social media. And I didn't realize like how obnoxious that was, doing that to myself for the longest time. I only recently realized this because I would always go through that mindset of when going through and working on a sketchbook, feeling like I hated the paper, and then I liked the paper, and then I hated the size of the sketchbook, and I would find so many different things that I did not like about working with the paper that I was working on. And it was just straight up because I was limiting myself to working with one kind of paper and one kind of sketchbook for a weird ulterior motive of posting it faster to social media, because if I'm working on 3 sketchbooks at a time, it's going to take me a very long time to actually finish one sketchbook. But letting go of that has been really nice. I've also been working out of my sketchbook so much recently. I've been working on so many loose sheets of paper, which has been really nice because I feel like the artwork that I'm creating on loose sheets of paper is much more polished and finalized and finished, versus when I was in my sketchbook, I would consider myself to be a fast artist, especially like even a year ago, I would consider myself to be a fast artist, but that really stemmed from me not really doing anything like super crazy or super detailed or a process that was time consuming. So by those standards, I considered myself to be a fast artist. So breaking out of that comfort zone and working on loose sheets of paper and not worrying about, oh, but if I did this in my sketchbook, I would fill my sketchbook faster and I'd be able to upload a video of my sketchbook faster. It's been very nice. I've been really enjoying it, and recently especially, I've been making a lot of art that I'm super happy with and super proud of, and just stuff that I'm having a lot of fun making. Not that by any means do I have a bad time working in my sketchbook, or do I see sketchbook work as like it needs to be fast but still look good or anything like that. I really love working in my sketchbooks, but there's only like a certain extent that I feel like I can push myself in my sketchbooks, especially since a lot of sketchbooks aren't like super fancy paper or anything like that. I have these ones now, which is really nice because they are cotton paper, and I absolutely love working with cotton watercolor paper, so I'm super excited to play with these. Like I said, especially the circle sketchbook, just because of its weird shape. I'm so excited to have a circle sketchbook. It's so cool. Yeah, it's just been very nice adopting much more healthy mindsets when it comes to doing art, because personally I see myself as having a very healthy mindset when it comes to art, because I know a lot of people can have toxic relationships even with their own artwork, whether that be centered around comparing yourself to others, or like needing to make artwork for posting to social media, or needing their artwork to be up to a certain standard for posting to social media, and just many other things that can be toxic with artwork. I feel like right now I'm definitely in the most healthy mindset when it comes to my own artwork and just art as a whole, and it's really nice. And it's very nice to acknowledge things and be like, wait a second, this is not what's best for me for creating. And just being able to acknowledge that and step away from it is very nice, and I think that a lot of other people could really benefit from doing that. I know it definitely takes time. Like, I used to be in such a negative place with my own artwork just a few years ago, honestly, where I felt myself constantly comparing my own artwork to other people's artwork, and it's something that's super easy to do, especially with social media, where you're constantly being shown artwork that you might consider to be better than yours. But I would hope that everyone will eventually get to the point in their own journey where they can just step back and be happy with what they're making and appreciative of what they're making, because at the end of the day, like, I do art because it makes me happy and I enjoy doing it and I really love creating. And this has definitely taken a turn away from anywhere I expected this voiceover to go, but here we are. But back to the actual sketchbook making part of things. As you can see, I'm just finishing up the second sketchbook here. This one was both easier and more difficult than the last one because it had 6 different stitching holes. It was a lot. It was a lot to keep the needles organized and to keep the thread organized, but what's nice about this sketchbook is it's a lot more sturdy than the circle sketchbook because I was able to actually bind the holes at the very top and bottom of the pages, versus with the circle sketchbook, I was not able to do that. I kind of had to bind it in the middle, so it's a lot less sturdy. Definitely not something I thought of before making the sketchbook. I only really realized it after the fact, but it's still very usable and it's still very cute, so at the end of the day, I'm just very excited to have a circle sketchbook. I'm also really excited about the larger sketchbook, the rectangle one. What I did for that one is I did use both hot press and cold press paper in this sketchbook. I just alternated them, so the first page is going to be cold press, then hot press, then cold press, then hot press, and just going down the line like that. I think all in all, I know I didn't use all of the sheets that came in the 2 pads. I want to say I used probably like 16 pages of each. So there's going to be 32 sheets or 64 pages in this sketchbook, so considering the size that it is definitely going to take me some time to actually finish this sketchbook. And as far as the artwork I'm showing here, I've actually really been enjoying working with inks lately. I've actually recorded a couple of other videos actually working with inks. I just haven't gotten around to actually editing them and posting them to YouTube, but I'll have a few more videos of just painting processes with inks. I've been using the Roar and Klinger inks that came in the Hikala box, and I know initially when I first got them, I wasn't 100% like super interested in inks, but I decided to dabble in them the other day and play around with them and just kind of get more used to them. Inks are always something that like kind of scare me just for the sake of they operate very similarly to watercolors, but once they're dry you can't reactivate the ink, so it's very permanent. And if you make a mistake, it's a lot more detrimental than watercolors are. So it's definitely been something that scared me. I also even now still have a really hard time mixing skin tones with inks. I've realized I go way too dark. I tried to not do that in this picture specifically, as I've tried with all of them but failed. I would say I did fail in this one too. I think I'm adding a little bit too much blue to my mix, and it's making the skin tone really cool, and I've been building my skin tones before I do the rest of the image mostly, so it's just led to me having a lot more. They're like more pigmented and more darker than I intended, so the skin tones do look a little wonky, but I've been having so much fun working with inks. I really want to pick up a bunch more different colors of this brand of ink because I really enjoyed working with them. It's still very similar to watercolors, but it's different enough that I've just been having a lot of fun playing with them and learning the medium as a whole. So very excited to do more ink stuff in the future, and I will have lots of more ink stuff to share with you guys in the very near future. As for the character I'm painting for you guys today, my best friend recently recommended for me to watch Wonder Egg Priority, and I very highly value her recommendations, and she also told me it was the same vibe as Madoka Magica, which obviously I'm going to watch that because I really like more genres that are like, they have very messed up tones to them. So like, I loved The Promised Neverland, I really like Madoka Magica, and Wonder Egg Priority still kind of falls into that same realm of things, so I binge watched it with Steven very quickly. It is such a good series. It's so cute. First of all, the art style is absolutely gorgeous, but all the characters are so lovable and so wonderful. And it's a very good series, so I'd highly recommend it to you if you guys are interested, and if you're interested in like the same category of like Madoka Magica and The Promised Neverland, because this definitely fits the bill. It's not as dark as the others, but it's still like, it's still there, and it's still so good, and it's so pretty. So I decided to paint the main character because I absolutely love her. She's adorable. The color palette of her outfit is also really pretty, so I had so much fun painting her and painting her yellow hoodie specifically. I really like using yellow in illustrations. It's a color that I never really expected myself to enjoy as much as I'm enjoying it right now, but especially like a warm, like a nice warm sunflower yellow. I have very quickly grown to really like that color. So I especially had a lot of fun painting her hoodie and just adding like warmer shadows to it and just playing around with the inks as a whole. Very fun. I did do the base line work for this piece off camera, but I did want to talk about it a little because it's something that I'm very excited about. I recently started picking up just individual Faber-Castell Polychromos colored pencils because I just kind of wanted to try them. Everyone insists that they're better than Prismacolors, which I believed because Prismacolors, I love my Prismacolors, but they break all the time first and foremost. The fact that like some pencils, I lose half of the pencil to just sharpening it enough that I can have a point without the lead breaking, it's rough. So I really wanted to try some Faber-Castell Polychromos. I was picking them up open stock, and then I just kind of snapped one day at a local art supply store, and they had a big sale, so I decided to pick up myself, I think it's a 36 pack of the Polychromos. And oh man, they're so insanely nice. They're so much more buttery and smooth compared to Prismacolors. The lead does not break nearly as fast, which I know part of that can definitely be it just being in transit and it might have been mishandled, especially for the Prismacolors because they do break easily, and I'm sure my container has been beat up because they break so much. They're already broken, I guess, is my problem because I don't know. Anyways, the Faber-Castell ones are so amazing. It was such an expensive set. It was a lot of money for 36 colored pencils, but I'm so happy I purchased them. It's been really fun using them for line work for both watercolor and ink pieces because the actual colored pencils are water resistant once they go on, so I can just use those for line work and then paint over it, and it looks so nice. I really like doing, it's not necessarily rainbow line work, but it's kind of rainbow line work. It adds so much color and depth to the piece, and it just makes things a lot less flat compared to using either just like a black fine liner or a pen or even a colored pen. I feel like it just adds so much more depth and just, I don't know, it looks amazing. I also do go over it still with a black gel pen just in areas that it needs it the most, which tends to be around the face area. But man, I have been really loving working with these colored pencils, and I'm very excited to keep using them, especially in this way, just adding accents. I also really want to play around with using alcohol markers with colored pencils. I don't know why that's not something I've really played with before, but it looks like a lot of fun. If you guys have made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I'll leave links in the description box below to the papers that I received from ARTEZA. Like I said, I really like working with them. They're really nice 100% cotton paper, so highly recommend. Thank you guys again for watching. I will be playing Animal Crossing for the next god knows how long because the 2.0 update dropped and it's already taking over my life. I took a break from editing this video. It was supposed to be like a 30-minute break. It turned out to be a 7-hour break of playing Animal Crossing, so that's how I'm doing. It'll probably continue to be like this for a while.